YouTube fan community, Jimi Hendrix fans, random people on the internet, my name is Giggens, and we're here today to talk about the first posthumous release from Jimi Hendrix, The Cry of Love. A record that came out a mere 6 months after he passed away. They got right to work on finishing this thing off, and it's not the complete vision of what the album could have been, or maybe what Jimi would have wanted, but it's a quick overall view of where he was going. Peaking at number 2 in the UK, number 3 in the US, this album eventually went platinum in 1998. And it's primarily made up of tracks that Jimi was working on throughout 1970. There's a couple of outliers here and there, but it was mostly done with Mitch Mitchell and Billy Cox, and done at the Electric Lady Studios, and it shows where Jimi was going. My biggest takeaway with this record is that so many people hear what Jimi was doing in 1970 and say that he was falling off, he was losing interest, and that Mitch Mitchell wasn't playing well, and he may have been going through some personal stuff, but there's a lot of negativity surrounding, I would say, the last 9 months of Jimi's life, recording-wise, personal-wise, but when I put this record on, for the most part, I hear a guy who is doing something new. He's playing differently. He's playing more in a funkier rhythm and more steadier rock beats, not just a groove like he had been doing for a few years. And especially the combination of the rhythm section of Mitch and Billy, that's a whole different animal from Buddy and Billy or Mitch and Noel. This technically does get accepted as the fourth album from Jimi Hendrix, and as they were making it, it's very, very possible this would have been a 2 LP set, which eventually would have gotten released through like Voodoo Soup or First Rays, and those kind of give you an idea of where the record could have gone. But I think as one record as it is now, if you had taken off a couple of songs and replaced them with a couple of songs that were around at this time, you would have had a much stronger album. This is a really strong album on its own, but it could have been a lot better. The other thing I want to add about like these recordings from 1970 is that I was born after 1970. So for me, if I hear a Jimi Hendrix song, it just sounds like Jimi Hendrix. I never grew up playing his CDs thinking like, oh, this is his late period. This sounds nothing like the early period. Like, you hear the subtle changes as he goes along, but I never heard them as like two different worlds. I always heard them as evolving. Same as when I got into The Who. If I heard I Can't Explain and then I heard You Better You Bet, I know it's the same band, and I dig it. Things just kind of changed. One's not necessarily worse or better than the other. It's just where they were at that point. And that's how I feel like this album is for Jimi. Opening up with Freedom, which is one of my favorite Jimi Hendrix songs. A totally propulsive, charged up rocker with layers of instruments, including a really well-used piano in the rhythm. This trio of Billy, Mitch, and Jimi just works so well. So you've got that chunkier rock feel, but it also has a swing to it, which I think is a trademark of what makes Jimi Hendrix's music so fascinating and attractive to your ears, is that there's a beat, but it also moves, kind of like how Charlie Watts plays drums. And lyrically, this track is about internal and external pressures and trying to calm them and find peace of mind, find a way to live your life comfortably without these pressures weighing you down. The chorus rocks so hard. The bridge is slinky and classic Jimi. The solo comes in, it hits just those right peaks. It's just a fun rockin' song, which is fascinating because track 2 is Drifting, and this one is the complete opposite. This is like a gorgeous summer breeze. It sounds like how this looks. I always love when Jimi plays around with more psychedelic and tender textures. Lyrically, this is way more poetic and loving and peaceful and patient. And then his guitar playing is equally as interpretive of the lyrical message. When I hear songs like this, I can't help but think of what could have been. Where would he have gone with this on his plate? What would have been next for him? Easy Rider was probably named after the movie itself, but this thing has elements of funk and fuzz rock and just really great percussion. I love the cowbells on this thing. The phaser on Jimi's guitars, the pounding bongos, a very straightforward drum rhythm. This one for me, and a lot of these songs, is Mitch and Billy reinventing the rhythm of what makes Jimi's sound his sound. And, is Mitch playing like how he did with Noel? No, he's not. He's playing like how he would with Billy. And same as when Buddy was playing with Billy. The stuff they were doing in 69, early 70, that was way more chunkier and straightforward and not as jammy, not as loose. And I think Mitch maybe was just changing with the times and changing with Jimi's playing as well. and going with it. Nightbird Flying is a fairly chill rocker with another straightforward drum pattern, but the bass really does a great job of holding this one down, beautifully allowing Jimi to just kind of sprinkle on his virtuoso playing style on top of it. He can bend, he can stretch, he can pick beautifully. It just shows his strengths. My Friend is kind of a goofy throwaway track. It's like a party atmosphere. It's fine, but it just kind of plods along and would have been one of the songs I would have taken off this album. Straight Ahead opens up side 2, an excellent bass on this thing, just rolling along, and there's some really crafty drum trickery on this one. So for all those saying Mitch can't play, this is one where he does a lot of his classic Mitch Mitchell kind of stuff. A groovy song about togetherness, working together, reaching out. I love Jimmy's weaving guitar work on this one, and they printed the lyrics on the back. Astro Man follows that one up next, and another one I would take off the album for sure. This is one of the weakest Jimi Hendrix songs ever. I'm not sure why this was released, and, carelessly dropping the F slur is a bizarre move. It feels so out of pocket for Jimi to drop something like that in a song. It doesn't make any sense. It's really weird that they would have released it. I mean, obviously, I guess the world was different back then, but that song definitely doesn't fly now. And it just doesn't work. It just sounds like a jam that really wasn't meant to come out. So Astro Man is one of my least favorite Jimi Hendrix songs ever. Would have taken that off in a heartbeat. And then you get Angel. And it's like, yeah, there we go. Like Little Wing Part 2. Like, this is the kind of stuff we dig. When Jimi is poetic and psychedelic and far out, I love his imagination. He just combines feelings and intimacy and heart and soul. He just finds all these fascinating ways to describe emotions. Rounding out the LP are 2 bluesy tracks in different veins, but In From the Storm is one of the dirtiest, menacing riffs on the album. And Jimi vocally, I feel like he's pushing himself into different places he doesn't normally go to, so hearing him go out of his comfort zone is refreshing, but the shifts are really cool. The sweeping thing that he does with his guitar rules. And Belly Button Window, the last track on the record, is apparently written from the point of view of like being inside the womb, but it's an old school blues jam. And hearing Jimi just on his own with a little bit of a wah-wah thing going on here and there is beautiful. And I think a really nice way to end the album. You end it with just him. The reason why we're here is because of Jimi Hendrix, and hearing him solo on his own is a touching ending. So like I said earlier in the review, there's a couple of songs I would take off. I would take off My Friend, I would take off Astro Man, and I would replace them with Dolly Dagger and Earth Blues. Dolly got held off to be a single for another release, the next album, Rainbow Bridge, but instead of, that's a very classic record company move, like, let's wait for certain things and put them out in different albums, and let's not just put all the good stuff on one album and, like, have mediocre to okay stuff on the rest of the albums. That's how you sell records. But anyway, they should have done it that way to make one really great sounding classic Jimi album. As it stands, it's fine. In terms of like his discography, it's not the best thing he's ever done, but there's some really great moments on here, of course. But yeah, I think if you took those 2 songs off and added the other ones as mentioned, Dolly Dagger would have been a great addition to this album, and Earth Blues is a fantastic song. So I think those 2 would have made this record so much stronger, but as it stands, I mean, it's a fun listen. This is a 2014 reissue from Experience Hendrix and Sony Legacy, so the back was a little bit different compared to the early ones. Of course, the barcode up there is a tall tale sign, but yeah, as it stands, it's not an album I go back to a ton, but I do enjoy it when I put it on, bar for a couple of songs. I'm probably going to say probably a 7 out of 10 on this one. It's not my favorite, but there's great moments. And I think in terms of its historical context of like where Jimi was going and the guys around him believing in the music so much, and a lot of it was pretty done. Not all of it was done, but a lot of it was done. Knowing that they saw the light at the end of the tunnel and wanted to complete Jimi's vision is really cool. So with that, I'm going to say a 7 out of 10 for Cry of Love by Jimi Hendrix, but let me know your thoughts in the comments below. My name is Giggens. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Jimi Hendrix, Cry of Love. And yeah, let me know what you guys think about this classic record in the description box below. But until then, see you guys in the next video. Take care of yourselves. Be good to each other. See you later. Bye-bye.